Born in 1961 to Kenya's founding father Mzee Jomo Kenyatta and Mama Kenyatta, Uhuru Kenyatta was not an ordinary kid, not only because he was the first son of Mama Kenyatta, but because he was stepping into big shoes of shadowing his father. Mzee Kenyatta was so fond of his son that these file photos show young Uhuru Kenyatta attending official meetings his father was officiating. An alumnus of St. Mary's School, where apart from his academic excellence, was also an excellent rugby player. Former Gatanga MP David Murade, whom until today remains Uhuru Kenyatta's closest confidant, tells us about the bubbly life of young Uhuru Kenyatta during his days at the St. Mary's School.
I've known him from high school. He was in St. Mary's, we were in Nairobi School. And he was very active in school, in sports, focused, a go-getter, very determined to achieve whatever he sets out to achieve. He's a kind of man who you don't go telling why certain things didn't happen or explaining or giving reasons. He wants to know whether it has happened or whether it did not happen.
In 1978, when Uhuru Kenyatta was only 17 years old, Mzee Jomo Kenyatta died, leaving Uhuru a bit distraught, but he at least had a close friend, President Daniel Arap Moi.
He was lucky. Uhuru was very lucky because Moi was there. There's a very funny relationship between Uhuru and Moi that people don't know. When the Mbio Koinanges of this world and Geshoros and the rest would go and discuss serious issues, and Moi would be left probably even playing with the kids, drafts. Moi used to attend Uhuru's school because the father was very busy, Jomo Kenyatta. Moi was a father figure of Uhuru. Moi is the one who used to attend the open days, parent days in St. Mary's on behalf of Kenyatta as Uhuru's father. Actually, I've had an occasion where Uhuru explained to me how Moi is a father that he has always known.
What many Kenyans may not know is that after completing his education at the St. Mary's, Uhuru Kenyatta served as a teller with the Kenya Commercial Bank, albeit briefly. Uhuru Kenyatta would later proceed to Amherst College in the United States, where he studied economics and political science.
His college was average in the US, Amherst College, but his grades were very good, both in St. Mary's and in America.
The common perception amongst many Kenyans is that Uhuru Kenyatta is a prince who inherited large sums of money, wealth and political influence from the father. Well, you're wrong.
Uhuru is your ordinary run-of-the-mill guy in the street. Uhuru has grown up, the mother, by the way, is very strict. So Uhuru has grown up at home in the village with the village boys, fighting with those boys. When he came of age, like in America, he was all by himself. When he came back to this country, it was the rough and tumble of business in Kenya as an individual, not as part of the family business. Like I told you, Kenyatta never ran any family business that Uhuru came into.
Upon his return from the United States for his studies, Uhuru set Wilhelm Kenya Limited, a company he used to source and export agricultural produce. He owned a pickup, which he would personally pick up fresh farm produce like cabbages directly from farmers.
Wilhelm used to do flowers and horticulture, and it was an exporting company. His own company, not family, his own company. And from there on, they've grown the family business together with his brother, his mother, his sisters, the family. And there's something very interesting about the late Jomo Kenyatta. Jomo Kenyatta never engaged in any business.
The Kenyatas began building a business empire that remains unrivaled so far. Uhuru ventured into active politics in the early 90s. While he was greatly indebted to his mentor and father figure, retired President Daniel Moi, Uhuru Kenyatta has stood up to President Moi, and that was during the 1992 bid for a multi-party democracy.
Uhuru and a group of young people, the tomboy son, Kothek, they are his friends, they stood up against Moi and were on the side of the people who were angling for multi-party. And they went to Moi, sons of prominent freedom era political leaders. And they said to Moi, no, the country needs pluralism. So it's not like Uhuru has had it on a silver platter. No, 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 no. He has had to struggle.
In 1997, Uhuru Kenyatta became KANU chairman in his hometown and would on the same year venture into elective politics when he ran for the Gatondo South constituency parliamentary seat. Uhuru defied advice even from his closest friends like David Murathe, following a near hysterical support for the Social Democratic Party SDP in the Mount Kenya region by locals.
KANU, we won. We were running on SDP. Because in Mount Kenya region, you only needed to be an anti-Moi to win. If you stuck with Moi, whether you are a Kamodo, whoever you are, you would never make it. And even Uhuru, we told him, hata kama wewe ni mtoto ya Kenyatta, if you run on this one, out. And sure enough, he never made it.
He would lose the seat to architect Moses Muhia, though in controversial circumstances. President Moi would appoint Uhuru Kenyatta as chairman of the Kenya Tourism Board in 1999. All this time, Moi was planning to thrust Uhuru into full-scale political activities. In 2001, the late Mark Tor resigned from Parliament to give room to Uhuru Kenyatta, who was nominated to Parliament and appointed Minister for Local Government.
In 1999, the Mount Kenya leadership, Kibaki, Jenga Karume, Michuki, Mwiraria, they had started bringing Uhuru in. I remember there was a time we even had a rally in Thika, which was an opposition rally. But they invited Uhuru, who was the chairman of KANU in Thika district. And I think that is when the system discovered that Uhuru is readily acceptable to the leadership of Mount Kenya. And then Moi started working towards making Uhuru his successor.
The same year, Uhuru would be elected first vice chair of the KANU party. Uhuru joined Raila Odinga, who had merged his NDP party with KANU, Kalonzo Musyoka, Musalia Mudavadi, Katana Ngala and others in the scramble to succeed Moi, who was set to retire the following year, 2002. But Moi had already picked Uhuru Kenyatta as his successor.
Ambaye mimi naona anaweza kwenda pamoja na vijana wale wengine ambao wana vice chairman, wana nani, ni kijana anayeitwa Uhuru Kenyatta.
Odinga, alongside Kalonzo, powerful KANU Secretary General J.J. Kamotho, would bolt out of KANU in protest, dismissing Uhuru Kenyatta as Moi's project. They formed the Liberal Democratic Party, which alongside NDP and NAK, formed by the third president of the Republic of Kenya, Mwai Kibaki, Kijana Wamalwa and Charity Ngilu, merged to form the National Rainbow Coalition.
Tulisema kama Moi atakuwa Kasarani, ambaye imekuwa Kisirani, sisi tutakuwa Uhuru Park tukiunda chama chetu.
Uhuru Kenyatta would face Kibaki, the NAK candidate in the ballot in 2002 as a KANU candidate, an election he lost. Uhuru Kenyatta was not a sole loser. In the history of competitive elections in Kenya, he became the first presidential candidate to concede defeat.
I accept the choice of the people, and in particular, now concede that Mr. Mwai Kibaki will be the third president of the Republic of Kenya.
He's the kind of guy who falls down, wakes up, dusts himself, and moves on.
Since the Lancaster Constitution required a presidential candidate to also be elected as a member of parliament, Uhuru Kenyatta would lead the opposition aggressively in challenging what he believed were the excesses of the Kibaki administration. He led his troops in the Public Accounts Committee in investigating the Anglo-leasing contracts, which in his report in Parliament, he described them as a scam and a system to continue robbing the country blindly.
When that report was thrown out by Parliament, it was thrown out when the government attempted to expunge the names of certain ministers from that report. And we, as an opposition, including many members of parliament on the government side, refused to endorse that report with expunged names. Now, with new revelations, with new evidence of attempts at cover-up, we are actually calling upon John Githongo to come up and give us that additional evidence, so that again we can push the same through Parliament. And if the government is not going to take action on that report, we then have no option but to call upon Kenyans to reject and eject a government that was elected on an anti-corruption platform, but that will have proved itself to be at the heart of corruption in this nation.
He teamed up with Raila Odinga and Kalonzo Musyoka, renegade ministers in the Kibaki administration, to campaign against the draft constitution in the famous orange and banana duo. The opposition and the renegade ministers succeeded in their campaign against the draft constitution. But Uhuru would surprise his comrades in the orange movement when he teamed up with incumbent Mwai Kibaki and declared that the KANU party would support him in his bid for the second term.
Today, having been mandated by our National Executive Council last week to sit down and discuss with His Excellency the President on the ability or on the possibility of us working together on the basis of mutual respect of political parties, I am happy today to say that those negotiations have been successful, and His Excellency the President has indeed confirmed to us that he to lead an alliance, the Party of National Unity, under which all political parties in this country that seek to join and seek national unity in this country are welcome to join. And we as KANU are in and for supporting the position that His Excellency the President has elaborated on today.
Following bloody clashes in the disputed election, Uhuru Kenyatta was appointed as Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for Trade after the signing of a national accord that brought about the Grand Coalition government.
Naapa kwamba nitaitumikia vyema na kwa moyo thabiti Jamhuri ya Kenya.
Before the national accord, Uhuru had a short stint as Minister for Local Government. Later, he would become Minister for Finance. His biggest contribution as the Minister for Finance was the launch of an economic stimulus package whose agenda was to reinvigorate the economy and prevent or reverse a recession by boosting employment and spending.
We have experienced challenges that several times have threatened to extinguish our hope and stifle our growth and eradicate our vision.
But trying times lay ahead. He, alongside the Eldoret North MP then William Ruto, and 4 others were indicted by the International Criminal Court as people bearing the greatest responsibility for the war crimes that had hit the country early 2008. Though the case would be withdrawn in 2014, David Murathe believes that it was the lowest moment for Uhuru Kenyatta, yet his biggest moment.
Because it is that gave rise to the partnership with the Kalenjin community, with William. The peace dividend that we enjoy today between the two warring communities of the Kikuyu and the Kalenjin was actually a seed that germinated from that experience, where they found themselves in the same predicament, and they were either going to hang around together or be hanged separately.
The charges would force him out of office as Minister for Finance, but retained the position of Deputy Prime Minister. Uhuru Kenyatta had already expressed his interest in running for the presidency in 2012. With the Mount Kenya voting bloc solidly behind him, Uhuru teamed up with William Ruto, who would become his running mate in the election that was postponed to April 2013, following constitutional hitches occasioned by the 2010 constitution. This time on the ballot, he faced his political rival and the son of former Vice President Jaramogi Odinga, Raila Odinga, and a host of other candidates whom he floored.
Round 1, against all odds. You remember the Mzungu saying choices have consequences, essential contacts. But he was able now to galvanize a lot of patriotism and nationalism and an anti-colonialism kind of psyche in the minds of Kenyans.
he would be sworn in as president after the Supreme Court upheld his win.
Aya, tumshangilie kwa makofi, shangwe na nderemo.
Uhuru Kenyatta would take over the roles of leading a country already facing security and economic challenges. The worst moment in his first term being the Westgate and the Garissa University massacres of innocent people by the dreaded Al-Shabaab militia being battled by the Kenya Defence Forces in Somalia.
I report with great sadness that 61 civilians lost their lives in the attack. 6 security officers also made the ultimate sacrifice